milk came without warning. Naomi's body didn't ask permission, didn't wait for her mind to catch up with the impossible situation unfolding in the private hospital room where Seoul's most dangerous man lay dying. She pressed her palm against the wet fabric spreading across her chest, horror and instinct warring inside her as Kang Min-ho's second-in-command blocked the doorway, his gun trained not on her but on the hallway beyond, and said in broken English, "You save him, we save your family. You let him die, everyone you love dies tonight." Choice wasn't a choice at all, and when she looked down at the unconscious crime lord, whose enemies had poisoned him with something that was shutting down every organ in his body, whose only chance of survival, the doctors said, was constant infusion of antibodies found only in fresh breast milk from someone with his rare blood type, she felt something shift inside her chest that had nothing to do with biology and everything to do with destiny recognizing itself in the dark. Welcome to Story World, besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. Naomi had been working at the hospital for 6 months, taking the graveyard shift because it paid double, and because her father's gambling debts didn't care that she was exhausted. The text had come at 2:15 in the morning. Her hands had shaken so badly she dropped her phone twice before she could read it. $50,000 by Friday or they start with your sister. She'd known it was coming, had felt it circling like a shark for weeks. But seeing the number, seeing the threat made real, had sent her to the bathroom where she'd cried silently into a paper towel, careful not to let anyone hear. Her daughter Zoe was 14 months old, asleep at her mother's apartment across town. Naomi's body still produced milk even though she'd started weaning last month. The doctors said it was normal, that some women's bodies held on longer than others. She'd thought it was a curse. Now, staring at the man who could either save her family or destroy it, she realized it might be the only miracle she'd ever get. "How do you even know this will work?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. The man with the gun, the one they called CEO, didn't lower his weapon. "Dr. Park says you have O-negative blood, same as Boss. Your milk carries antibodies. His body is shutting down because the poison attacks from inside. Medicine can't reach it fast enough, but breast milk it absorbs differently. Faster." "That's insane." "You have a better idea. You tell me now." Naomi looked at Min-ho again. Even unconscious, even dying, he was beautiful in that dangerous way that made smart women cross the street. Sharp jaw shadowed with stubble, black hair falling across his forehead, tattoos visible where his hospital gown had shifted to reveal his collarbone. She'd seen him before, twice, both times from a distance when he'd visited the hospital's VIP wing. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone knew not to ask questions. "If I do this," she said quietly, "my family's debt is erased, all of it." CEO nodded once. "Boss's word is law. You save him, he saves you." "And if I don't?" His expression didn't change. "Then none of us leave this room alive." The first time was clinical. A nurse showed her how to position herself, how to support his head, how to check that he was actually swallowing. Min-ho remained unconscious, his body operating on pure instinct. Naomi tried not to think about the intimacy of it, tried not to feel the warmth of his breath against her skin, tried not to notice how even dying, his lips were gentle. She lasted 4 minutes before she had to pull away, her face burning, her heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. "Again," CEO said from his position by the door. "Every 2 hours until he stabilizes." That first night lasted forever. Naomi fed him, waited, fed him again. Somewhere around dawn, his color started to return. His breathing evened out. The monitors stopped screaming their warnings. Dr. Park came in at 6, checked Min-ho's vitals, and looked at Naomi with something between respect and pity. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. He's fighting back now." By the second day, Naomi had stopped feeling self-conscious. Her body had shifted into autopilot, responding to Min-ho's need the way it had once responded to Zoe's. She brought a book, read quietly between feedings, tried not to think about the armed men stationed outside the door or the fact that her entire life now depended on a man who killed people for a living. On the third day, he woke up. His eyes opened slowly, dark and disoriented, scanning the room until they landed on her. Naomi froze, suddenly hyper-aware that she was sitting beside his bed in a tank top, a blanket draped across her lap, her body still tender from the last feeding. "Who are you?" His voice was rough from disuse, his accent thick. Before she could answer, Seo appeared, speaking rapidly in Korean. Minho's gaze never left Naomi's face as he listened. She watched emotions flicker across his features, confusion, realization, something else she couldn't name. When Seo finished, Minho said in careful English, "You saved my life." "I didn't have much choice." "There is always choice." He tried to sit up, grimaced, fell back against the pillows. "What did they promise you?" "That you'd clear my father's debt." "How much?" 50,000. His eyes narrowed. "That's all, for this." He gestured vaguely between them, acknowledging without saying the intimate thing they'd been doing while he was unconscious. Naomi lifted her chin. "I'm not asking for more. We had a deal." "The deal was made without my permission." Minho's jaw tightened. "While I was dying." Fear spiked through her. "Are you saying you won't honor it?" He stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, deliberately, he reached for the call button and summoned Seo. The conversation that followed was entirely in Korean, clipped and tense. Naomi understood none of it, but she understood the way Seo's expression shifted from defensive to surprised to something almost like approval. When Seo left, Minho turned back to her. "Your father's debt is cleared. I've also transferred $100,000 to an account in your name." Naomi's breath caught. "I didn't ask for." "You saved my life. In my world, that debt is bigger than money." He paused. "But there is one condition." Of course there was. Nothing came free, especially not from men like him. "What condition?" "You continue treatment until I'm fully recovered. The poison is still in my system. I need you." The way he said it, low and certain, made something flutter in her stomach. "For how long?" "A week, maybe 2. She should have said no, should have taken the money and run. But looking at him, at the intensity in his dark eyes, at the way he was trying to sit up despite obvious pain, because he refused to appear weak, she found herself nodding. "Okay, 2 weeks, then I'm done." Minho smiled, and it was devastating. "Then you're done." By the end of the first week, Naomi had learned more about Kang Minho than she'd ever wanted to know. He ran half of Seoul's underground economy. He was 32, educated in London, fluent in 4 languages. His father had been murdered when he was 16, and he'd taken over the organization at 17. He didn't drink, didn't smoke, and read philosophy in his spare time. She learned this not from him, but from the steady stream of visitors who treated her with careful respect once they understood who she was, what she was doing, why the boss looked stronger every day. She also learned that Minho noticed everything. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. The way she bit her lip when she was thinking. The way she hummed softly sometimes during feedings, an unconscious lullaby. "You have a child," he said one evening, not a question. Naomi looked up from her book. "A daughter, 14 months. And a husband." "No husband, just me." Something shifted in his expression. "The father." "Gone before she was born." She met his gaze steadily. "I don't need him." "No," Minho agreed quietly. "I don't think you need anyone." But the way he looked at her suggested he wanted to be wrong. The intimacy of the situation crept up on both of them. At first, feedings were medical, necessary, nothing more. But as Minho recovered, as he became more aware, more alert, the dynamic changed. He watched her now, really watched her, his eyes tracking her movements with an intensity that made her skin warm. "Why do you do this work?" he asked one night. "The hospital, the night shift, you're educated, I can tell." "Student loans, single motherhood, life," she shrugged. "Same reason anyone works a job they don't love, because they have to." "You could do something else, with the money I gave you." "The money is for Zoe, for her future." Naomi's voice was firm. "I don't take shortcuts." "This isn't a shortcut. You earned it." by doing something any woman with a baby could do. No, Minho sat up fully now, strong enough to move without pain. Any woman could feed a child. Not every woman would feed a stranger. Not every woman would risk herself for family. He paused. You're brave, that's rare. Naomi felt her cheeks heat. I'm not brave, I'm desperate. There's a difference. I've known desperate people my whole life. They don't have kind eyes. He reached out, his fingers brushing her wrist so lightly she might have imagined it. You do. She pulled back, heart racing. Don't. Don't what? Don't pretend this is something it's not. You're paying me. We have a transaction, that's all. Minho's expression hardened. Is that what you think this is? Isn't it? He leaned back, jaw tight. If that's what you need to believe. The tension between them stretched thin as wire. Naomi gathered her things, suddenly desperate to leave. I'll be back in 2 hours. Naomi. She stopped at the door. Thank you, for today, for every day. She didn't trust herself to respond, so she just nodded and left. Outside in the hallway, she pressed her back against the wall and tried to catch her breath. This was a mistake, all of it. She was getting too close, feeling too much, letting him see too much. But when 2 hours passed, and her body reminded her it was time to go back, she didn't hesitate. On the 10th day, everything changed. Naomi arrived for the evening feeding to find Minho's room crowded with men in expensive suits. The conversation stopped the moment she entered. Every eye turned toward her, assessing, calculating. Minho stood by the window, fully dressed for the first time since she'd met him. He looked dangerous in a tailored black suit, his hair slicked back, his expression cold and sharp. Gentlemen, he said in Korean, then switched to English. This is Naomi Carter. She saved my life. You will treat her with the same respect you show me. Is that understood? A chorus of affirmatives followed. Then the room cleared, leaving them alone. What was that? Naomi asked. Reminders that you're under my protection now. I don't need. Yes, you do. Minho crossed to her, moving with the predatory grace of someone who'd fully recovered. Someone tried to kill me. They used poison because they couldn't get close enough for a bullet. They'll try again. And now that people know you're the reason I'm alive, they'll come after you to finish what they started. Fear crawled up her spine. No one knows about me. I'm nobody. Everyone knows. His voice was gentle, but his eyes were hard. In my world, nothing stays secret. The woman who saved Kang Minho is a story people want to hear, and my enemies will want to make sure there's no one around to save me next time. Naomi stepped back. This wasn't part of the deal. The deal changed the moment you touched me. He moved closer, crowding her space. I owe you my life, Naomi. That means I protect yours, whether you want me to or not. I have a daughter, a family. I can't be part of your world. You already are. The words hung between them, terrible and true. That night, 2 men followed Naomi home. She noticed them immediately, their black sedan idling 3 cars back, never quite disappearing. When she pulled into her mother's apartment complex, they parked across the street and waited. Inside, Naomi locked every door, checked every window, and called the one number she'd been given for emergencies. CO answered on the first ring. What's wrong? There are men outside my mother's apartment, watching. They're ours, boss's orders. You're protected now. I don't want to be protected. I want to be left alone. Too late for that. CO's voice was matter of fact. You saved his life. That makes you family. Family gets protected. I'm not family. Tell that to him. The line went dead. Naomi stood in her mother's tiny kitchen, phone pressed to her chest, and understood with perfect clarity that her life had just been rewritten in ways she couldn't control. The next morning, she went to the hospital to tell Minho their arrangement was over. She found him in the gym, shirtless, going through forms that looked like a dance but moved like violence. Sweat gleamed on his skin, highlighting every muscle, every tattoo, every scar. He saw her in the mirror and stopped immediately. You're early. I'm done, we're done. Whatever this is, it's over. Minho grabbed a towel, wiped his face, turned to face her fully. No. Excuse me. You heard me, no. He walked toward her slowly, deliberately. You don't get to save my life and then disappear. That's not how this works. I don't care how your world works. I care about my daughter, my family. I can't have armed men following me everywhere. Then let me keep you safe another way. Naomi laughed bitterly. There is no safe with you. There's safer. He stopped inches away, so close she could feel the heat radiating off him. Move into my compound. Bring your daughter, bring your mother. I have a house big enough for all of you. Security, privacy, everything you need. Are you insane? Practical, his eyes burned. You're in danger because of me, let me fix it. By trapping me. By protecting you. She wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to do anything except feel the magnetic pull drawing her toward him. What do you want from me, Minho? He hesitated, then quietly, I don't know yet, but I know I'm not ready to let you go. The honesty in his voice cracked something open inside her. This is crazy. Yes. I should say no. You should. But you're not going to let me, are you? Minho's smile was slow and dangerous. I'll let you choose, but I'll also make sure you understand what you're choosing between, safety with me or danger without me. There is no third option anymore. Naomi closed her eyes. She thought of Zoe, of her mother, of the men parked outside their apartment. She thought of the life she'd built from nothing, and how fragile it suddenly seemed. When she opened her eyes, Minho was watching her with an expression that looked almost like fear. 1 month, she said finally. Trial basis. If it doesn't work, I leave and you promise to back off. Agreed. And you keep your distance. This isn't, we're not. I understand. But the way he looked at her suggested he didn't agree. 3 days later, Naomi moved into Kang Minho's compound with a suitcase, a diaper bag, and the sinking feeling that she'd just made either the best or worst decision of her life. The compound was more estate than home, 15 acres of manicured gardens surrounded by walls that looked decorative, but were reinforced with steel. The main house was modern, all glass and clean lines, with enough rooms that Naomi could avoid Minho entirely if she wanted. She didn't want to, that was the problem. He'd given her the entire east wing, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small kitchen. Her mother had her own space on the first floor. Zoe had a nursery that looked like something from a magazine, complete with toys Naomi couldn't afford and a crib that probably cost more than her car. This is too much, she'd said when Minho showed her around. It's necessary. He'd crouched down to Zoe's level, letting the baby grab his finger with her tiny hand. Hello, little one. Zoe had studied him with serious eyes, then smiled. Minho had smiled back, and Naomi's heart had done something complicated. The first week was an adjustment. Naomi learned the rhythms of the house, the staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts, the men in suits who treated her with careful respect. She learned that Minho left early and came home late, that he worked from a private office in the West Wing, that he was meticulous about keeping his world separate from hers. Except at dinner. He'd asked the first night if she'd join him. You don't have to, but I'd like the company. She should have said no, should have maintained boundaries. But Zoe was asleep, her mother was watching television, and the thought of eating alone in her beautiful prison felt unbearable. So she'd said yes. Dinner became routine. Every night at 8, they'd sit across from each other and talk about nothing important. Books, movies, the weather, carefully neutral topics that felt like code for all the things they weren't saying. But on the 10th night, Minho broke pattern. Tell me about Zoe's father. Naomi set down her fork. Why? Because I want to understand you. Understanding me requires knowing about him. Understanding why you're afraid to let anyone close. Yes. She could have lied, could have deflected. Instead, she found herself telling the truth. His name was Marcus, We met in college. He was charming, ambitious, exciting, everything I thought I wanted. She paused. Then I got pregnant, and he became someone else, angry, controlling, violent. Minho's expression went very still. He hurt you. Once, that's all it took for me to leave. Naomi met his eyes. I grew up watching my father hurt my mother. I promised myself I'd never let a man do that to me. So when Marcus raised his hand, I was gone. Good. The single word carried weight. He doesn't know about Zoe, Minho asked. No, and I want to keep it that way. Done. If he ever comes near you or her, he won't leave breathing. The casual way he said it should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like safety. You can't just kill everyone who threatens me, she said softly. Minho's smile was cold. Watch me. That night, lying in bed with Zoe sleeping beside her, Naomi admitted something she'd been avoiding. She was falling for him. For the man who read poetry in Korean, who played with her daughter like she was precious, who looked at Naomi like she was the only thing in the room worth seeing. It was the worst possible thing she could do. But her heart didn't care about possible. It only cared about inevitable. The shift happened on a rainy Thursday. Naomi was giving Zoe a bath when Minho appeared in the doorway, soaked from the storm outside, blood on his knuckles. Are you okay? She asked immediately, standing. It's not mine. He leaned against the doorframe like he needed it to stay upright. Can I just sit here for a minute? Of course. He sank onto the closed toilet lid, head in his hands. Naomi finished bathing Zoe, wrapped her in a towel, and carried her to the nursery. When she came back, Minho was exactly where she'd left him. Talk to me, she said gently. I killed someone tonight. His voice was hollow. He deserved it. He was selling drugs to kids, but still, I took a life. Naomi knelt in front of him, hesitated, then rested her hands on his knees. Look at me. He did. His eyes were dark with something that looked like despair. You're not a monster, she said firmly. Monsters don't feel remorse. How do you know I feel remorse? Because you're sitting here bleeding and broken instead of celebrating. Because you came to me instead of your men. Because you still think you need to be forgiven. Minho's hands covered hers. Do I need to be forgiven? I think you need to forgive yourself. They stayed like that, kneeling on the bathroom floor, hands clasped, until the storm passed. When he finally stood, he said, Thank you. For what? For seeing me, not what I do, not what I am, just me. Then he left, and Naomi understood that the walls between them were crumbling. The next morning, Naomi woke to find a gift outside her door. A simple box, no card, but she knew who it was from. Inside was a first edition copy of Toni Morrison's Beloved, her favorite book, one she'd mentioned casually over dinner weeks ago. She held it carefully, running her fingers over the cover, and felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. Minho was in his office when she found him, surrounded by papers and men speaking rapid Korean. He looked up the moment she entered, his expression shifting from business to something softer. Out, he said to the room. No one argued. When they were alone, Naomi held up the book. You remembered. I remember everything you tell me. Why? He stood, moving around the desk until he was close enough to touch, but didn't. Because everything about you matters. The air between them felt charged, electric. Naomi knew she should step back, maintain distance, remember all the reasons this was impossible. Instead, she moved closer. Minho. Don't, his voice was rough. Don't say whatever you're about to say, not yet. You don't know what I was going to say. You were going to tell me this can't happen, that you're leaving soon, that we're too different. His eyes searched hers. Am I wrong? She couldn't lie. No. Then let me have this moment. Let me pretend for just one more day that you might stay. Naomi's heart cracked. This isn't fair. Nothing about us is fair. He finally touched her, his fingers brushing her cheek so gently it hurt. But it's real. Tell me you don't feel it. She couldn't because she did feel it. Every time he looked at her, every time he spoke her name, every time he existed in the same space and made her forget how to breathe. Feeling something doesn't mean we should act on it, she whispered. No, but it means we can't pretend it doesn't exist. Before she could respond, his phone rang. The moment shattered. Minho stepped back, answered in Korean, his expression going hard and cold. When he hung up, he said, I have to go, business. Dangerous business. All my business is dangerous. He paused at the door. Lock yourself in tonight. Don't answer the door for anyone but me or Sio. Fear spiked through her. What's happening? Nothing you need to worry about. I'm handling it. Then he was gone, leaving Naomi alone with a first edition book and the echo of words neither of them had been brave enough to say. That night, Naomi couldn't sleep. She paced her room, checked on Zoe 3 times, and finally gave up and went to the kitchen for tea. The house was dark, silent except for the guards she knew were stationed outside. She was pouring hot water when she heard the front door open. Footsteps, heavy, uneven. Minho appeared in the kitchen doorway, leaning against the frame. His shirt was torn, blood seeping through the fabric at his side. Jesus! Naomi set down the kettle and rushed to him. What happened? Nothing important, just a disagreement. You're bleeding. I've had worse. She guided him to a chair, ignoring his protests, and pulled up his shirt. The wound was a gash, not deep but long, slicing across his ribs. This needs stitches. I have a doctor. I'm a nurse. Sit still. She grabbed the first aid kit she'd insisted on keeping in every room and set to work cleaning the wound. Minho watched her in silence, his jaw tight, his breathing controlled. You should have called someone, she said, focusing on threading the needle. I wanted you. Her hand stilled. Minho. I know all the reasons this is wrong. But when I'm hurt, when I'm angry, when I'm anything, you're who I want. He caught her wrist gently. Tell me I'm alone in this. Tell me you don't feel it too. Lie to me if you have to. Naomi met his eyes. She could lie, should lie. Instead, she said, you're not alone. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Then she went back to stitching, her hands steady even as her heart raced. When she finished, she bandaged the wound and stepped back. Minho stood, crowding her space against the counter. Naomi. We can't. Why not? Because I have a daughter. Because your world is violent. Because I don't know how to do this with someone like you. Someone like me, he repeated. You mean someone who kills people. I mean someone who lives in danger, who has enemies, who could die any night and leave me. She stopped, horrified at what she'd almost admitted. But Minho heard it anyway. Leave you what? Alone, grieving? His hand cupped her face. You're already worried about losing me. That means you already care. Caring doesn't mean we should. He kissed her, not gently, not asking permission, just pulling her against him and claiming her mouth with a hunger that stole her breath. Naomi should have pushed him away, should have remembered all the reasons this was impossible. Instead, she kissed him back, her hands fisting in his torn shirt, her body arching into his despite the logical voice screaming that this was a mistake. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Minho pressed his forehead to hers. Tell me to stop. I can't. Tell me you don't want this. I can't. Then let me have you, just tonight, just once. Let me know what it feels like to hold you without pretending. Every rational thought told her to say no. Every rational thought lost. Just tonight, she whispered. He lifted her onto the counter, his mouth finding hers again, his hands careful despite the urgency. Naomi wrapped her legs around his waist, forgetting the wound in his side, forgetting everything except the way he touched her like she was something sacred. They made it to his room somehow, clothes discarded in a trail neither of them would remember later. When he laid her on his bed, his eyes asked permission one more time. She pulled him down to her, answering with her body what her mouth couldn't say. The intimacy between them was nothing like Naomi expected. Minho touched her with reverence, mapping every curve, every scar, every secret place that made her gasp. He murmured words in Korean she didn't understand but felt in her bones. When they finally came together, it felt less like surrender and more like recognition. Like two people who'd been searching finally finding home. Afterward, wrapped in his arms with her head on his chest, Naomi felt his heart beating against her ear and knew with terrible certainty that she'd just ruined everything. "Don't," Minho said quietly, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "Don't regret this." "How do you know what I'm thinking?" "Because I know you." He tilted her face up to his. "You're already planning how to leave." She couldn't deny it. His expression went carefully blank. "Stay until morning at least. Let me have that much." "Minho. Please." The single word broke her. She nodded against his chest and felt his arms tighten around her. But when dawn came and he was finally asleep, exhausted from the wound and the night, Naomi slipped from his bed. She dressed in the dark, her hands shaking, her heart screaming at her to stop. She couldn't do this, couldn't be the woman who fell for a killer, couldn't raise her daughter in a world where violence was currency, couldn't let herself need someone who might die any moment. She was back in her room, packing a bag with trembling hands, when her mother appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing?" her mother asked. "We're leaving. Get Zoe ready." "Naomi." "Please, Mom, don't argue. We have to go now." Her mother studied her for a long moment. "You slept with him." It wasn't a question. Naomi's silence was answer enough. "And now you're running because you're scared." "I'm not." "Yes, you are." Her mother crossed the room, taking Naomi's shaking hands in hers. "Baby, I know you. You've been running since Marcus, building walls so high no one can climb them. But that man downstairs, he's already inside your walls, and that terrifies you." Tears spilled down Naomi's cheeks. "He's dangerous, Mom. His life is dangerous. I can't." "Can't what? Let yourself be happy. Let someone protect you for once instead of always protecting everyone else." "It's not that simple. Love never is." "I don't love him." Her mother's look said she knew that was a lie. Before Naomi could argue further, the door burst open. Sio stood there, gun drawn, face grim. "We have a problem." Naomi's blood went cold. "What kind of problem?" "The kind where your father just sold information about you to Boss's enemies. They know you're here. They know about Zoe. They're coming." The world tilted. No, that's not. My father wouldn't." 50,000 wasn't enough to clear his debts. He owed more. They offered him double to tell them where you were. Sio's expression was hard. He took it. Naomi felt her knees give out. Her mother caught her, holding her upright while everything she thought she knew about her family shattered. "Where's Minho?" Naomi managed. "Mobilizing everyone we have. But you need to come with me now. There's a safe room in the basement. You, your mother, Zoe, you'll be protected there." "I want to see him." "No time. They're already on the property." As if to punctuate his words, gunfire erupted outside. Close, too close. Her mother grabbed Zoe from her crib, the baby waking with a startled cry. Sio herded them toward the hallway, gun raised, his body a shield between them and whatever hell was breaking loose outside. They made it to the basement stairs when the explosion hit. The blast threw Naomi into the wall. Her ears rang. Smoke filled the hallway. Through the chaos, she heard Sio shouting into his radio, heard more gunfire, heard her mother screaming her name. Then hands grabbed her, pulling her up. Not Sio, someone else, someone rough. Naomi fought, kicking and clawing, but the man was stronger. He dragged her backward toward the emergency exit while she screamed for her daughter, for her mother, for Minho. "Shut up," the man growled in accented English. "You're worth more alive, but I'll kill you if I have to." He shoved her through a door into the rain-soaked night. A van waited, engine running. Naomi tried to run, but he caught her hair, yanking her back hard enough to make her vision blur. Your boss wants you breathing. Didn't say anything about unmarked. He threw her into the van. She hit the metal floor hard, tasting blood. The door slammed shut, plunging her into darkness. Through the thin walls, she heard the battle raging at Minho's compound. Heard the sounds of a war being fought over her existence. Then the van started moving, and Naomi understood with perfect clarity that she was about to become leverage in a game she never wanted to play. Somewhere behind her, she prayed Minho was alive, prayed her mother and Zoe had made it to safety, prayed that this wasn't the end. But prayer felt useless in the dark. The van drove for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Every bump sent Naomi sliding across the metal floor. Her head throbbed where it had hit the wall. Her wrists were zip-tied behind her back, cutting off circulation. She forced herself to think through the panic. They wanted her alive, which meant she had value, which meant Minho would come for her. She just had to survive until he did. The van finally stopped. The door opened, revealing a warehouse, empty except for a chair in the center and 3 men with guns. They dragged her to the chair, tied her down. One of them, the youngest, looked nervous. Boss said not to hurt her. Boss ain't here, the one who'd grabbed her said. He backhanded Naomi across the face, splitting her lip. That's for making me chase you. She spat blood at his feet. Kang Minho will kill you for that. Kang Minho is busy burying his dead. By the time he figures out where you are, you'll already be on a boat to Shanghai. Fear spiked through her, but she kept her expression blank. You're making a mistake. The only mistake here is yours, sweetheart. You should have stayed a nobody nurse. Now you're worth $2 million to the right buyer. They left her alone then, just one guard by the door. Naomi tested the ropes, but they were tight, professional. She couldn't move without cutting into her skin. So she waited, and planned, and refused to let herself think about Zoe crying for her, or her mother terrified, or Minho possibly bleeding out somewhere. She had to believe he was alive, had to believe he was coming. 2 hours passed, maybe 3. The guard changed twice. Naomi's body ached from sitting in one position, her face throbbed, her mouth was dry. Then she heard it, distant at first, gunfire, screaming, the sounds of violence approaching like a storm. The guard's radio crackled. A voice shouted in Korean, panicked, cut off mid-sentence. Then silence. The guard raised his gun, backing toward the door. Stay quiet. Naomi didn't respond. She was too busy watching the warehouse's far entrance, where shadows moved with predatory grace. The door exploded inward. The guard managed one shot before he went down, taken out by someone moving too fast to track. Then Minho was there, stepping through the smoke, gun in one hand, knife in the other, his face a mask of cold fury that made him look like the monster people whispered about. His eyes found Naomi. Something flickered across his expression, relief and rage warring for dominance. Close your eyes, he said quietly. She did. The sounds that followed would haunt her later. Wet, final, the kind of violence that didn't ask questions. When Minho said, "It's over," she opened her eyes to find him cutting her ropes, his hands gentle despite the blood on them. Zoe, she asked immediately. Safe, your mother too. There at a different location. Relief made her dizzy. Minho caught her as she swayed, lifting her like she weighed nothing. I've got you. My father. Dead, Minho's voice was flat. He won't hurt you again. She should have felt something. Grief maybe, anger. Instead, she just felt tired. Outside, the warehouse was surrounded by Minho's men. Bodies littered the ground. Naomi looked away, burying her face in Minho's chest. He carried her to a car, settled her in the back seat, and climbed in beside her. The moment the door closed, his control shattered. I thought I lost you. His hands cupped her face, his thumbs brushing away tears she didn't know she was crying. When Seo told me you were taken, I'm okay. You're hurt. He touched her split lip so gently it made her chest ache. I'll kill them all over again for this. They're already dead. Not painfully enough. Naomi caught his hands, holding them still. Minho, look at me, I'm okay. We're okay. He pulled her into his lap, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. His heart hammered against hers, his whole body shaking with adrenaline and fear and relief. Don't ever run from me again, he said roughly against her hair. I can't lose you, not now, not ever. I wasn't running from you. I was running from what I feel for you. He pulled back, searching her face. And what do you feel? Naomi knew this was the moment. The choice. She could lie, could protect herself, could walk away and build walls so high he'd never reach her again. Or she could tell the truth and risk everything. I love you, she whispered. I tried not to, tried to convince myself it was gratitude or fear or anything else, but I love you, and that terrifies me. Minho's expression cracked open. Why does it terrify you? Because loving you means accepting your world. The violence, the danger, the possibility that any day could be the day you don't come home. I'll always come home to you. You can't promise that. Watch me. He kissed her, soft and desperate. I will burn this entire city down before I let anything take me from you. You're mine, Naomi. Mine to protect. Mine to love. Mine to keep safe. That's not how love works. It's how my love works. His forehead pressed to hers. I'm not asking you to change. I'm asking you to let me be who I am. A killer, yes. A monster sometimes. But yours, only yours. Naomi closed her eyes, feeling the truth of it settle into her bones. What if I can't live with what you do? Then I'll find another way to live. I'll walk away from everything, build something new, be someone new. His voice was fierce. Whatever you need, Naomi, whatever it takes to keep you. You'd give up your organization, your power. For you, yes. The certainty in his voice broke something open inside her. She kissed him, pouring everything she couldn't say into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she said, I don't want you to change. I just want you to come home. Always, I promise. It was a promise he couldn't keep. But sitting in the back of that car, wrapped in his arms while the city burned around them, Naomi chose to believe anyway. 3 months later, Naomi stood in Minho's office watching him negotiate with men who feared him and felt nothing but pride. He'd changed in small ways since that night. Still dangerous, still deadly, but more careful. He delegated the worst jobs, came home earlier, made time for dinner with her and Zoe every night. The compound had become home. Naomi's mother had her own suite. Zoe had a nanny she adored. Naomi herself had gone back to school, finishing her nursing degree online. Life wasn't perfect. There were still threats, still enemies, still nights when Minho came home with blood on his hands. But there were also mornings when Naomi woke to find him watching her sleep. Afternoons when he played with Zoe in the garden. Evenings when he held Naomi and whispered promises in Korean she was learning to understand. What are you thinking about? Minho asked, noticing her watching him. How different my life is now. He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. Better or worse? Different, she kissed him, but I wouldn't change it. Good, because I have something for you. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Naomi's heart stuttered. Before you panic, Minho said, this isn't a proposal, not yet, but it's a promise. He opened the box, revealing a simple gold band with a single inscription inside. Mine. Wear this, he said quietly, and let the world know you're protected, that you're loved, that you're mine. Naomi took the ring, slipped it on her finger, and felt the weight of it like an anchor. I'm yours. And I'm yours, he kissed her softly, for as long as you'll have me. 6 months after that, they married in a small ceremony with only family present. Naomi wore cream, not white. Zoe was the flower girl. Minho cried when he saw Naomi walking toward him and didn't care who saw. The vows they spoke were traditional, but the promises beneath them were not. Naomi vowed to love him despite the darkness. Minho vowed to keep her in the light. A year later, Naomi discovered she was pregnant. Minho's reaction was everything. He dropped to his knees in the middle of their kitchen, pressing his ear to her still flat stomach, murmuring in Korean. "What are you saying?" Naomi asked, running her fingers through his hair. "That they're already loved, that they'll be protected, that they're the best thing I never knew I needed." Tears blurred her vision. "We're having a baby. We're having everything." He stood, lifting her into his arms. "A family, a future, a life I never thought I deserved." "You deserve this," she said fiercely. "You deserve happiness." "I deserve you," he corrected. "Everything else is just a gift." 9 months later, their son was born. They named him Jin, meaning precious. He had Minho's dark eyes and Naomi's smile, and from the moment he entered the world, he was loved beyond measure. In the delivery room, Minho held his son and looked at Naomi with wonder. "How did I get so lucky?" "You knocked on death's door," Naomi said, exhausted but happy. "And I answered. Best mistake I ever made." "Being poisoned." "No, surviving long enough to meet you." Outside the hospital, the city continued its chaos. Inside, a family built from impossible circumstances proved that sometimes love didn't conquer darkness. It simply learned to exist beside it. And in the quiet moments between danger and peace, Naomi would look at her husband, her children, her unlikely life, and understand that some miracles tasted like breast milk and blood, desperation and devotion, a choice made in the dark that led to light. Minho would catch her looking and smile, that devastating smile that still made her heart race. And she'd smile back, knowing that whatever came next, they'd face it together. Because that's what family did. That's what love meant. Not the absence of darkness, but the presence of someone brave enough to hold your hand through it. And they'd been through enough darkness to know that their light was real.